Welcome to Silent Psychology. In today's story, we dive into a quiet, unexpectedly powerful moment of connection, one of those rare events that stays with you long after it ends. It started on a quiet, golden evening in early autumn, the kind of evening where the sun lingers longer than usual, casting everything in a gentle amber hue, like the world itself didn't want the day to end. The air was crisp, wrapped in that familiar scent of drying leaves and faint chimney smoke. I had just finished watering the last of the potted mums on my porch. The air was still, peaceful. It was my birthday, but I wasn't expecting anyone. No plans, no calls scheduled. Just another page on the calendar. I looked across the street and paused. There he was, Ethan. I had known Ethan for years, but only in the way that suburban life makes people familiar. He was the son of Carol, my neighbor. We weren't close friends, just the occasional exchange of pleasantries, a wave across driveways, a polite nod when passing by. I remembered him from his teenage years, and now, in his 30s, he returned sometimes to help Carol with chores around the house. Denver was where he lived now, if I recalled correctly. But that evening, something was different, something about the light that caught the outline of his frame. He had that quiet, grounded way about him, a man not in a hurry, but sure of himself. Earlier that morning, Carol had called me with a last-minute request. She had to leave town for a quick work trip and asked if I could water her plants and collect the mail. I had done it before, and I agreed without much thought. After all, I had no celebration planned. My children were off living their own busy lives, and the man I had once called my husband was now just a memory. So when I crossed the street that evening to begin my neighborly duties, I wasn't expecting company, but as I neared the porch, I saw a flicker of movement through the curtain. A tall figure moved past the window. I stopped. Carol hadn't said anyone would be there. I knocked lightly. The door opened, and there he was. "Miss Carter," he said, a little surprised. That name again. I never liked it. Made me feel like I was someone old, someone with a ruler in hand and a clipboard under her arm. But I smiled anyway. "Hi, Ethan," I replied warmly. "Your mum didn't mention you'd be here. She called me last minute," he said with a sheepish grin. "Thought I'd house sit for the weekend." I nodded, about to make my exit. But something in his eyes stopped me. It wasn't just politeness. It was curiosity, warmth, maybe even familiarity. "Would you like to come in for a bit?" he asked. I was just about to make some tea, or something stronger. My instinct was to say no. I had gotten used to solitude over the years. It was my armor, my routine, my calm. But in that moment, something stirred, an old whisper of spontaneity. "Sure," I said. The living room welcomed me with a calm warmth. The scent of cedar lingered in the air, mixed with fabric softener and the comfort of familiarity. A soft acoustic melody played from somewhere, slow and nostalgic. He disappeared into the kitchen while I settled on the edge of the couch. The house felt lived in, cozy. There were little details that spoke of Carol. Decorative pillows, family photos, but there were also signs that Ethan had been there for a while. A book on the coffee table, a folded flannel jacket on the armrest. He returned with 2 glasses of wine. "Red okay?" he asked. I smiled. "Perfect." We clinked glasses. The first sip was smooth, rich, bold, but comforting. Our conversation began with the expected, his work, his time in Denver, how his mother was coping with an aging house and a sometimes temperamental lawn. But soon, the dialogue deepened. He asked about me, not in a surface-level way, but with intent. He asked about my career, about nursing, about how it felt to have a house that was once full, now so quiet. I told him stories I hadn't told in years, not out of secrecy, but because no one had asked. At one point he looked at me and said, "You don't seem lonely." I let out a quiet laugh. "Don't I?" He shook his head. "You seem at peace." I nodded, but inside something tugged. Peace and loneliness, I said, can live in the same house. That moment changed the tone. The silence between us grew heavy, not awkward but meaningful, a space where neither of us had to pretend. I should probably go, I said, looking down at my half-empty glass. You can, he replied, or you could stay a little longer, talk some more. Everything in my adult life had been built around reason, boundaries, structure, but that night I chose to stay, and we talked. The sky darkened, and the outside world faded away. Inside, it was just the two of us, sharing space, sharing thoughts. He asked me, "Do you ever feel like life passed you by while you were busy being responsible?" The question hit deeper than I expected. "Yes," I answered. "Yes, I do." His voice lowered. "That's how I feel sometimes, like I blinked and ended up here, wondering what I missed." We didn't touch, we didn't move closer, but something was alive in that stillness, unspoken recognition between two people who had taken different roads and still found themselves paused at the same intersection. "Do you think it's ever too late to start again?" he asked. I didn't know, but I stayed, and somehow that felt like an answer. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through my curtains. For a brief moment, I wondered if I had imagined the whole thing. But it had been real. Nothing inappropriate had happened, no boundaries crossed. But something in me had shifted. I had been seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. By mid-afternoon, I'd convinced myself it had been a fleeting moment, one of those emotional illusions wine sometimes creates. Then I heard his voice. "Hey, Linda!" I turned. He was at the edge of my yard, coffee mug in hand. "Brought this back to you." I walked toward him. As I took the mug, our fingers touched briefly. That same spark. Not a blaze of romance, not a surge of desire, but something quieter, something deeper. "Thanks," I said. He smiled. So it happened. I didn't dream it either. I could have said goodbye, could have turned and gone back into my predictable life. But instead I asked, "Are you hungry?" His eyes lit up. "Are you inviting me to lunch, Miss Carter?" I rolled my eyes and laughed. "Stop calling me that. And yes, come on in. I made too much chicken salad anyway. Sometimes it's not the dramatic moments that change us. It's the quiet ones. The ones that arrive unannounced, sit beside us without asking for anything, and leave us with a deeper understanding of what we're still capable of feeling." Thanks for watching Silent Psychology. If this story moved something in you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay open to the unexpected.